Hello everybody, welcome to Wolf Camp. We're on the freshwater section and today we have a special treat. We are on a farm visit here at a private pond and we want to talk about pond management. Pond management is really cool because I call it an environment in a test tube. Everything that you do here in this pond, you will see your success and your failures very quickly. I want you to think about carrying capacity. Imagine a 5-gallon bucket being filled with water. That 5-gallon bucket can only hold so much water. Once we cross that threshold, water starts to spill over. So this pond can only hold a certain amount of fish. So what we do in extension is we can check for pond balance. And we have a couple tools of the trade. One tool is your handy dandy fishing pole. The other tool is what we have here is this seine. As you can see, this seine is long. We have a top that has floats, and here on the bottom we have weights. And how this works is this weights is going to hold it against the bottom of the pond, and the person on the bank and the person in the water will tilt the handles at an angle, and this will create a half moon. And they'll do a sweep, and the fish will come up here and be trapped, and then we'll take it and we'll have a look. And what we look at is year classes in size. We want to see babies, we want to see intermediate, and we want to catch some different size adults, hopefully of largemouth bass and bluegill or brim. And how we evaluate that is by size class. If we have a lot of bass that are the same size, that means that it's bass overcrowded, and we can do things to take bass out to balance that population. The same way with bluegill. If we have a lot of bluegill that are fat, big, we have to take some of those out. A bass can lay anywhere from 2,000 and 7,000 eggs per year, so you can see how quickly they become overpopulated. So up next, we're actually going to show you how to seine a pond. Here you see it takes two people to properly seine a pond. One person goes in the water wearing chest waders. The other stays on the bank. The key here is to stretch the net as far out as possible. This net happens to be 10 feet, so we carefully get in place. And remember, what we're trying to do here is we're creating this half moon shape. There's weights on the bottom and floats on top of the net, and the mesh is little enough to where the young of the year fingerlings will not fit through. So once we are in place, we will begin a sweeping motion. We have some help on the bank to try to land us a good catch. So once our friend is in position on the bank, we will begin that half moon sweep. As you can see, I am walking towards the bank, trying to keep the bottom of the net as close to the bottom as possible. So we are slowly turning back towards the bank. Trying to scoop up young of the year, and again, this is to check pond balance. So here we have a catch. We're going to scoop it up and bring it up on the bank. So since we have it on the bank, we now go through and we find everything in our net. Ideally, we will have baby bass, baby bluegill. In perfect situations, we would have intermediate sized bluegill and bass. So let's see what we have. We got a good catch. I see some. Oh, that is Miss Sheila has us a baby bass, a fingerling bass, largemouth bass. Let's see if we can pull it up and take a look at it here. Oh.
There we go. There's the young of the year largemouth bass. You can tell that it has a lateral stripe going down its body, long and slender. And those are a bunch of baby bluegill. So we had a productive haul. And we would do this to test the balance, probably 3 sweeps per surface acre. We also found some aquatic insects as well. As you can see, it was successful. Now we have our other favorite tool of the trade, the fishing pole, rod, and reel. We had some fun.
Right, so we caught a really nice bluegill here, so we're going to go over some basic fish anatomy. Let's start with the fins. So you can see fish have fins all over their body, and they're all used for different things. This big fin on the top here is called the dorsal fin, and it's typically the longest fin on a fish. And the first rays, it actually has spikes and rays in it. So on a bluegill, you have to be really careful. This first part of the fin is filled with very hard spikes, and then the back part, it gets soft, and those have rays in them. So that is called the dorsal fin right there along the back of the fish. Then you come up here, and this is basically, if the fish was a human, this is where its arms would come out. So we call these the pectoral fins. And these help a fish keep itself right in the water column and help it with its balance. When you go down here, this is where the legs or the hips were. So we call this fin right here, there's a set of fins at the bottom towards the front called the pelvic fins. And they also help in balancing the fish. Back here is another fin on the bottom side of the fish, and it's very near the anus, and so it is called the anal fin. And then one of the most important fins is this one right on the back. This is the fin that actually propels the fish through the water, and that is called the caudal fin. So there's a couple of other things, unique anatomy structures when we look at fish. You can see this is called the gill flap or the operculum. It's the covering of the gills, and this is what the fish moves back and forth to put oxygen-rich water over its gills so it can be circulated throughout the body. Fish have eyes, and they also have openings on the top here. They're called nares. It's very similar to our nose. It's a sensing organ for them. They have a mouth with tongues and teeth. This bluegill has real small sandpaper type teeth. You can usually tell by what kind of teeth a fish has as to what they eat. And bluegills eat insects and other small fish. So they don't need big chomping teeth. They just need grasping teeth. And then all fish have a lateral line that goes down their side. Kind of hard to see in a bluegill, easier to see in some other fish. Like a largemouth bass, you can see the line very clearly. But that lateral line is a sensing organ that they use to sense their distance from other fish when they're swimming in schools and any other disturbances in the water. So that is the basic external anatomy of a freshwater fish. Let's take a look at another fish that you might see in a freshwater pond in Florida and other places in the United States. And this fish is called the largemouth bass. It's a freshwater carnival. Let's look at some of its anatomy here. First thing you notice, its body's covered in scales. If you could feel it, it has a slime coat on it. It's a very torpedo shape or fusiform, which enables it to swim fast. It has a lot of sensory organs. Starting at the mouth here, you can get a lot of clues from the mouth. The size of the mouth will tell you what kind of prey they eat. The larger the mouth, the larger the prey, and in this case, quite a large mouth on this fish. You'll also see a paired set of nostrils or nares on the top of the fish's head where he can smell. Fish have eyes and they can detect color in the water. And then here you have the gills and the gill flap covering called the operculum. This is how the fish breathes. So let's move on and look at some of the fins that are on the fish. The fins actually allow the fish to maintain position, to move, to steer, or to stop. Some fins are singular, like this dorsal fin right here. It's made up of both sharp spines on the front of the dorsal fin, and the back of the dorsal fin has soft rays. It's one of the single fins on a fish. Next, we're going to look at some of what we call the paired fins on the fish. The first set of paired fins that we're going to look at are called the pectoral fins, and they call them the pectoral fins because these fins are in the same position as your pectoral arms. And so I'm going to turn this fish over, and you'll see that the pectoral fins are a set of paired fins. They're identical on either side of the fish, and they help the fish stop and maintain position. Next, we go to the bottom of the fish, and we find another set of paired fins. These are actually the pelvic fins. Basically, pelvic, just like where your legs would come out. That's where this set of fins is on this fish. You see the vent here, which is the anal opening for feces and urine, and right behind that we see an anal fin, so named for its location on the fish. It helps it keep it from rolling over. And then finally the tail fin, or the caudal fin, which is where the fish gets most of its propulsion. It pushes it fast through the water. If you look carefully on most fish, and quite easily seen in this fish, you'll see a line going down the side of the fish. This is called the lateral line, and it is another external sensory organ. It helps the fish sense water currents and movement, and is very useful in the schooling behavior of fish because they can feel the other fish near them and move them. So that's about it for the external anatomy of a largemouth bass. It's a beautiful fish. So let's go ahead and get this guy back out in the water.